Good morning, class. So this will be the continuation of the previous lecture, I think, about septic arthritis. Am I audible? Is my slide visible? Chat box में लेखा था सुनने को सके चाहिए. Okay, so this will be the continuation of the previous lecture, and we will try to cover up the management of septic arthritis. So this is the one of the emergencies, surgical emergencies, or one of the medical emergencies in orthopedics is septic arthritis. Today shortly we will try to see what are the differential diagnoses, how we reach to a diagnosis to a case of septic arthritis, what are the treatment options, what are the possible complications, and how bad is the prognosis of septic arthritis. So we will try to cover up these topics in today's presentation. So talking about differential diagnosis, the first and the foremost differential diagnosis that should be distinguished from septic arthritis will be acute osteomyelitis. Both are acute emergencies in orthopedics, and many times these two are indistinguishable. Especially this is especially true in case of younger children. But there are certain points that that favor is other diagnosis. So if we see clinically means if we see the history, the symptoms of the patient, the fever, the systemic features will be more or less alike. So one of the most differentiating feature between septic arthritis and chronic osteomyelitis, acute osteomyelitis will be the range of the motion. So since septic arthritis is affecting the joint and osteomyelitis is affecting the metaphyseal area. So in osteomyelitis, certain degree of range of motion will be possible because joint is not involved. So though the movement of the joint is painful, so though the child is does not move his or her joint, if we examine the child clinically and try to passively flex and extend the affected joint, some degrees, say 5 or 10 or 15 degrees of range of motion, some degrees of range of motion will be possible in acute osteomyelitis. However, it will not be possible in case of septic arthritis. So other features being the same. So this is one of the distinguishing features. Another thing that we can do, we will try to see. So we have already seen in case of diagnosis. So if you aspirate the joints, okay. So if you get fluid from the joint, it is septic arthritis. There is no doubt about it. Okay. So one of the differential diagnosis is acute osteomyelitis. Then others, irritable joint or transient synovitis of hip. So in this case, the child is not really sick. The prodromal symptoms of fever, chills, high-grade fever will not be present in case of irritable joint, and there will be no local signs of infection also. And many times ultrasonography will give some clue, may give some clue, but again the diagnosis is clinical. There will be no prodromal symptoms in case of irritable joint. The range of motion will be possible. The child, though with antalgic, will be able to walk or bear weight, which is not the case in case of septic arthritis. So another differential diagnosis will be the hemophilic bleed. Patient will usually give a history of bleeding disorder like hemophilia, and time and again one of the largest joint, for example, large joint like knee joint, there will be collection within the joint. Again, the features of infection or the features of inflammation will not that be prominent, but there will be huge amount of swelling with positive history of bleeding disorder. And if we try to aspirate, we will get blood. So hemophilia or the hemophilic bleed is one of the other differential diagnoses. And then the rheumatic fever, in which case there will be migratory arthralgia. Juvenile rheumatoid arthritis, again the onset is not acute. Okay, the acute osteomyelitis and septic arthritis both are acute in onset. Okay, so fever, pain, unable to bear weight of short duration. In juvenile RA, the duration will be usually longer. The duration will be usually longer, and the systemic symptoms will again be less. one or few joints, multiple joints. So juvenile rheumatoid arthritis can again be monoarticular, polyarticular, or polyarticular. So the number of the joints affected will be maybe 2 or 3 or even more. But in case of septic arthritis, usually a single joint is affected unless it is the person is in is having concomitant diseases like chronic diseases or severely ill. So sometimes there will be, if there is septicemia, multiple joints may be involved. Otherwise, usually a single joint is involved in case of septic arthritis. In gout and pseudo gout, again, there may be history of hyperuricemia. If we aspirate the joint, the fluid will be turbid, the cell count will be high, and if we do the polarized life, we can see characteristics crystals of calcium pyrophosphate or uric acid. Again, the in acute gout, again there may be acute onset of flare, the redness can be there, severe pain will be there. Again, the affected joint, the gout usually affects the small joints like first tarsometastarsal joint. The joint affected will be different. So among all these differential diagnosis, the most difficult to differentiate is from acute osteomyelitis, and both acute osteomyelitis and septic arthritis are acute in onset. However, other differentials are relatively more gradual in onset and progression. Okay. So for reaching diagnosis, these all things play in role. So most important in the clinical diagnosis, assisted by lab studies, imaging, and the clinical judgment. So if you think that it is septic arthritis, there is no harm in opening the joint. If you delay managing septic arthritis, we may lose the articular cartilage, which is very much important for the range of motion of the joint. So clinical diagnosis is the most important. Clinical judgment is most important rather than relying on lab investigations or other imaging modalities. Okay. So certain guidelines have been proposed. So this was given by Kocher. This is especially true for septic arthritis in lower limb, especially hip joints. Okay. So what is said that if there are among these four symptoms, four findings, if fever is more than 38.5 degrees centigrade, if the child is unable to bear weight, if lab result shows total count more than 12,000 and ESR more than 40, if all the four of these are present, the likelihood of having septic arthritis is more than 90%. So if 2 or 3 are present, the likelihood is less. So this here is especially true in case of children, that too of lower limb, and this was one of the criteria given by Kochers. Okay. So having diagnosed a case of septic arthritis, if you think that this is a case of septic arthritis, the foremost and the only treatment is surgical. If a question comes to you about the management or treatment of septic arthritis, don't start only with conservative treatment. Your first sentence should be, it is a surgical emergency, and the first and foremost treatment is arthrotoping, opening the joint, is surgical. Okay. So there is no, or literally no, very much minimal role of non-surgical treatment. So there is rarely a role of non-surgical treatment. However, if there is accessible joint, for example, knee joint, sometimes what we can do serial aspiration and installation of antibiotics, and that again is some form of intervention. So to aspirate, to give intravenous irrigation, again you need to go within the joint. So that is also some form of intervention. So without any intervention, we will not be able to, we should not manage a case of septic arthritis. And sometimes, rarely, some literature say that if it is a case of adolescent gonococcal arthritis of the knee joint, of large joint, sometimes we can go with large dose of penicillin alone, for which the gonococcus is sensitive, and it may not require surgical or formal surgical debridement. So this is the only case. For all other case, we need surgical drainage. If formal surgical drainage is not possible, for example, a patient may be in ICU, a patient may be severely sick, so that he may not be able to take into the operation theater. But remember, if there is a foci within a body, septic foci within the body, there are every chances that hemorrhage will end up in septicemia, DIC, and further multi-organ failure can occur. So, if such is the case, even simple aspiration or drainage in local anesthesia should be done. So, it is a crime if you do not open a case of septic arthritis. And again, remember, in some days in your near future, when you will be doctors, you will be posted in emergencies or different wards. So it is again a crime. So for example, a child, for a case of septic, you diagnose a case of septic arthritis in the evening, and you do not post for OT to the next day. Okay, so if you think it is acute, and if you think it is acute septic arthritis, you open then and there. It's just like draining an abscess. Okay, so indications of surgical is the standard care for almost all septic joints. Okay, so our aim is to take out all the pus. So if you remember the pathogenesis of septic arthritis, we have said that the destruction of articular cartilage is by two means. One is by the enzymes produced by our own body, other are the enzymes produced by the bacteria. So to clear all the damaging enzymes, be it produced by the organism or be it produced by our human body, so that should be cleared out. And if child patient's clinical status prevents surgical intervention, that is contraindicated, though we may try doing such surgery in local anesthesia also. So if you go for surgical, there may be 2 or 3 options. So one of the standard foremost option is arthrotomy. Artho means joint, tomy means opening. So you give an incision over the joint, and you take out all the purulent fluid and irrigate the fluid with joint with copious amount of normal saline. So that's the one of the most golden standard treatment. And other advances with the advent of newer techniques like arthroscopy, sometimes in larger joints like knee joint and hip, shoulder joint, elbow joint, also sometimes we can go for arthroscopic drainage. So again, what we do, we put an arthroscope within the joint, and we do with our naked eye examination, we drain out all the fluid and do a continuous irrigation. Okay, so formal arthrotomy, the energy is the arthroscopy. So in between these two, in between formal arthroscopy and formal arthrotomy, we can go. There is a intermediate technique called multiple suction irrigation. Okay, so what we can do, if for example, in case of adult gonococcal arthritis, if we think that the child is not very much sick, in adult case, what we can do, we can put 2 needles, 2 syringes within a joint. So from one, what we can do, we can push in the fluid, push in the normal saline, and with another syringe, but the syringe should be having a large bore. If the diameter of the syringe is small, we cannot aspirate the thick material. So it should be large bore. Say for example, 16 or 14 gauge needle, or if sometimes we can even go with the spinal needle. Okay, so the bore of the needle with which we are aspirating should be large enough to bring out the collection. So from one end, we keep on pushing the normal fluid. From other end, we keep on aspirating, and we aspirate till the time when the aspirate is clear. Till the time the aspirate is purulent, we keep on aspirating, we keep on continuous irrigation, and that may be possible if formal arthrotomy. If open arthrotomy is not possible, sometimes we can go through this alternate route. Okay, so rehab will again depend upon the progression of the disease. So we may try, once the patient is pain free, we try to give range of motion as early as possible, so that some amount of range of motion will be prevented. If we try to sprint the joint for a longer time, the articular cartilage damage will be complicated by fibrosis within the joint, and it may hamper the further range of motion of the joint. So if the pain permits, if the patient is symptom free, we will try to instill the rehabilitation as early as possible. So this is an example. The hip joint is being opened from posterior aspect. So this is the patient is prone in this case. This is the posterior approach. The sciatic nerve piriformis muscle. The hip joint is there. So we inside the capsule. Again, remember opening the joint. There may be different approach. So we have to go for the from the safest approach. Okay. So this is again a case. Septic arteritis of knee joint open the medial approach, medial parapatellar approach. Again, we can go from medial and or again we can go from lateral also. There are different approaches. You need not go into details, but remember the incision should be long enough. Don't be afraid that if I make a bigger incision, it will take more time to heal. Your aim is to drain the pus as adequately as possible. So there is no problem if your incision is 2 centimeter or 5 centimeter, that the scar will heal. But the articular cartilage, if we give a small incision, if we want to give say cosmetic incision, 2 centimeter incision, and if we drain, if the drainage of the fluid is incomplete, again there will be problem, and sometimes we may have to go for repeated surgeries. Okay, so don't, if we are going to open it, don't be afraid of giving a for incision enough to drain all the accumulated fluid. So this is the another model. This is arthroscopic model. The arthroscope is being inserted. So again, in this case, small incisions are made. So again, continuously we try to irrigate and suction out all the purulent material that are present within the joints. Okay, so in our scenario, the most common joint that we are assessing with arthroscopy is knee joints. Okay, so in case of knee septic arthritis, we are also performing arthroscopic debridement. In other joints, like for deeper joints like hip joints, we usually go by formal arthrotomy. And before starting the treatment, usually we send for complete blood count, culture and sensitivity, the joint fluid aspirate if we have done. And once we do the surgery, again the dead tissue or the purulent, the pus is again sent for culture and sensitivity. But remember, before starting the treatment, when you aspirate the joint for examination, if the aspirate is purulent, so if you remember the chart that was presented in last, the differential between the gouty arthritis or tubercular arthritis or septic arthritis, if it looks like pus, you don't wait for the lab reports, because the culture and sensitivity, this CBC may come in the same day, but CS culture and sensitivity will take 48 to 72 hours. So don't wait till 42 or 72 hours. Do intervene. If you think it is septic, intervene as early as possible. Okay? So treatment measures, if we say, is general supportive care, splintage, antibiotics, drainage, and aftercare. So we will try to look in each subheadings. Our principle of treatment is the joint must be adequately drained. So there is no point putting a syringe and trying to aspirate only, because the bore of the syringe is very much narrow, and the pus, or if the patient presents late, the pus will be usually be organized in form of granulation tissue, which cannot be removed by simply syringe. Okay, so it should be, the incision should be adequate enough to drain all the purulent material. Okay, so antibiotics must be given to diminish the systemic side effects of the symptoms, and the joint must be rested in a stable position. So splintage is necessary in early phase when the patient is in pain. Some form of splintage is necessary. So adequate drainage, antibiotics, and resting the joint. So these are the principles of our treatment. So how we want to support the care, since the patient will be in severe form of pain, we have to give some form of analgesics. If there is fever, we have to give antipyretics. There will be fluid loss, so adequate hydration, adequate nutrition to boost the immune system, so that the child or the person will be able to overcome the disease. Okay, so analgesics, antibiotics, fluids, nutrition, so this all come in the general supportive care. Okay, splintage in children's, especially in case of neonates, there is every chance, since the in case of septic arthritis of hip joint, the head or the cartilage of the head, epiphyseal cartilage of the head is femoral head is not well formed. So if we do not splint this proper position, there is every chance that there is the joint may sublux, and in long run there will be dislocation of the hip joint and the stimulus. So probably you may not have gone through DDS पढाइ भएको छैन होला. So the stimulus for formation of acetabulum is hip joint. So unless the femoral head is there, in when you see in the newborn, the acetabulum is very much shallow. It is not deep, very much shallow. So the stimulus for formation of acetabulum is the femoral head. If femoral head is not present, if it is dislocating, the acetabulum will not be formed, and there will be chronic serious dislocation of hip. So to prevent that, especially in case of children, we keep the hip in abducted position, so in 30-degree flex position to prevent the dislocation. Otherwise, so one of the complications in case of neonates or the early infants, when the femoral head is not well formed and is not sitting within the acetabulum, is dislocation of the head joint. Okay, so splintage in others, in adults maybe, or in a child maybe say of 12 or 13 years, the splintage may be for pain relief. But in case of children, especially in case of infants or say up to 6 years of age, and especially if there is septic arthritis of hip, we try to put it in abduction and some degree of flexion. So antibiotics, the guideline is similar as that of acute osteomyelitis. We try to give IV for 4 to 7 days, and we titrate. So clinically, we see if the systemic symptoms have come down or not, whether the affected knee looks quieter or not, and we do the lab investigations. If the count are within normal limit, if the CRP is falling within normal limits, we may switch to oral antibiotics for another 3 weeks. Otherwise, sometimes in some cases we may have to give IV antibiotics for also for 3 weeks. So since this duration 4 to 7 days or 10 days or 2 weeks will usually depend upon case by case scenario. So there is no clear cut guidelines. What we should show the clinical and lab status of the patient and make a decision when to switch over to oral antibiotics. Okay. So this slide again, in the neonates and up to 6 months, the organism is usually group B Streptococcus gram-negative bacilli, and sometimes Staph aureus also. In children from 6 months to puberty, usually Staph. In older children, it's usually Staph. So this probably, I think I have said earlier also, the enemy to or in orthopedic surgeon is Staph aureus. So it is, be it skin infection, be it implant infection, be it osteomyelitis, be it septic arthritis. In most of the cases, the dreading organism is Staph aureus. And the antibiotics, usually we give a combination of fluoxacillin or flucloxacillin and cephalosporin. Cephalosporin third generation or second generation. And if you suspect other organism, for example Pseudomonas or another gram-negative organism, or probably in the earlier slide we have talked about atypical septic arthritis caused by say tubercular organism or salmonella. In such cases we may have to go for specific antibiotics. Otherwise, in all cases, in most of the cases, empirically we start with flucloxacillin and cephalosporin. Again, that is changed appropriate drug as per as the culture and sensitivity report. So we don't wait for the culture report to come before starting antibiotics. We start antibiotics early, and we switch over or change over once the culture and sensitivity report comes to us. Okay. So the drainage. Now drainage is usually done on anesthesia, if possible, general anesthesia or spinal anesthesia. If not possible, in local anesthesia also we have to go for drainage. The joint is open through a small incision, but remember it should not be small enough. It should not be small, very much so small that all the fluid, all the pus or all the granulation tissue or the formal debridement is not possible. So it must be adequate and drained, and it should receive is washed with normal saline. And putting a catheter, again, there are different school of thoughts. Sometimes but many prefer to put a suction drain, and the wound is placed within the suction drain, so that we can see whether what type of collection is within the joint. Okay, so continuous irrigation is different things. So in our when we were students, we probably have seen continuous irrigation. That usually is not practiced. Continuous irrigation means it can be done in septic arthritis also, or acute osteomyelitis also. So there will be two drains. So one will be inlet the antibiotic impregnated normal saline. Usually the usual antibiotic that we used was gentamicin. So from one way the gentamicin mixed solution is entering within the joint, or say entering within the osteomyelitis, and from the other suction the fluid is being aspirated. So this is kept continuous for 3 or 5 days, and the time when to stop this is determined by the type of the exudate. So if we see that in the drain the fluid that is collected in the pipe of the drain, it is clear. Okay, it is not purulent. It is, if the fluid of the inlet and fluid of the outlet is similar, we remove that system. But usually this system is not practiced nowadays, because there are because of aggressive debridement or arthroscopic debridement being possible, or more aggressive treatment being possible. But still we put suction drain for 2 or 3 days to see what type of amount of collection is being, to see the type of the fluid being collected and the amount of the fluid being collected. Okay, so the catheter can be left and it is removed after 3 or 4 days. And so, suction irrigation may be performed in sometimes if the S period is very much thick. If you think that if your suction drain is not able to, because if the collection is very much thick, the bore of the suction drain will not be able to suck out the collected fluid. In such cases, sometimes we may have to give suction irrigation. So when we instill the normal saline, the collected pus will be, the viscosity will be less. It will be thinned out and aspiration will be possible. And sometimes in deeper structure, for example, knee is a very much superficial joint. We can clinically judge how much is the collected fluid and can be judged from outside. Okay, but that is not possible in deeper joint like hip joint. We cannot say, because of the muscle bulk around the hip joint, we will not be able to say whether the hip joint is full or not. Okay, in such cases, or in very much young infants, sometimes we may put suction irrigation for long times, but usually this is not practiced nowadays. Suction irrigation means one way inlet with irrigating fluid, the another way suctioning out with the drainage. Okay, and for the knee, now arthroscopic debridement and copious irrigation is possible, and people have started treating septic arthritis arthroscopically, and again the outcome is equally good with that of open formal arthrotomy. Okay, in older children, sometimes ultrasound guided or repeated aspiration of the joint. Young adolescent, single joint involved, not very much toxic, not very much sick, the ES are not very raised, the CRB not very raised, gonococcal. Sometimes we can go for multiple aspiration, no arthrotomy, multiple aspiration. But remember the case here, if there is no improvement within 48 hours, so this may be tried for 1 or 2 days. If no improvement within 48 hours, we again do a open drainage. And this technique may be indicated in very much early septic arthritis. If the symptoms are less than 2 or 3 days in initial days, if the infection has not much progressed, in such a case we can go for this mode of treatment, aspiration. But remember, if if there is a question or anyone asks you what is the gold standard treatment of septic arthritis, it is arthrotomy. Okay, opening the joint. So aftercare, again aftercare will depend on two scenarios. If you remember the sequelae of septic arthritis, natural history, if the articular cartilage is completely damaged, okay, if the articular cartilage is completely damaged, there will be exposure of bare bone. The subchondral bone is again very much vascular, and there will be bony ankylosis. If the articular cartilage of both the surfaces damage and the bare bone come in contact with one another, there will be fusion of the joint, bony fusion of the joint. If there is partial damage of the articular cartilage, there will be fibrous ankylosis. So if the articular cartilage is preserved and we want to preserve the range of motion of the joint, we encourage gentle and gradual range of motion as early as possible, because we want to prevent motion. If the articular cartilage is completely damaged, if the articular cartilage is completely damaged, for example, in case of septic arthritis of finger, so if you counsel the patient, if you see in the X-ray or during the debridement the articular cartilage is completely damaged, and if we expect that we want to fuse the joint, we want to achieve bony fusion, in such cases we will splint the foot and splint. Otherwise, once the pain subsides, once the patient is clinically good, improving, the range of motion will be started as early as possible to prevent the complication of joint stiffness. Okay. So in short, the treatment, antibiotics start with empirical, change to definitive, joint drainage, closed aspiration, for example, arthroscopy can be done, or formal opening arthrotomy can be done. Okay. The another mode of treatment is rehab in the early phase, non-weight bearing, but frequent range of motion, and once the signs of inflammation recedes, active range of motion and weight bearing may be given. Okay. Now talking shortly about complications, so the femoral head may be destroyed. So if you see in this example, the epiphysis of femoral head is well preserved. There is no epiphysis seen. So there can be complete destruction of the femoral head, usually in case of children. Okay, there may be deformity of the fascial, because we understand that the growth occurs from the fascial plate. So if the fascia is damaged, if the growth plate is damaged, there will be ligament. Either there will be angular deformity or there will be shortening of the leg, or there, if the articular cartilage is again damaged, the acetabulum will not be formed, and again there will be chronic subluxation. Okay. There can be joint contracture, there can be hip dislocation, growth disturbances, hiatal abnormalities, osteonecrosis, chondrolysis, especially in case of older children. The whole of the in older patients, in young patients, whole of the epiphysis will be lysed, whole of the epiphysis will be gone. But in older patients, some amount of articular cartilage will be gone, and there will be restricted motion, or sometimes there can be again complete ankylosis of the affected joint. Now, talking about prognosis is usually good unless the diagnosis is delayed. Okay, so if sometimes because of our difficult terrain, or there is a habit that usually patients get treatment from local health center, and if the local health center is not aggressive enough, is not capable of diagnosing such a case, or the treatment is delayed, or if even patient comes to us, we think that okay, this is the starting cause of this, we can wait for 2 or 3 days. So if the treatment is delayed, if the diagnosis is delayed and the treatment is delayed, the prognosis may be bad. Otherwise, if before the articular cartilage, because in the earlier phase there will be phase of inflammation and there will be proteolytic enzymes produced only, there will be no articular cartilage damage. So before the start of articular cartilage damage, if we are able to intervene, the prognosis is usually good. So the poor prognostic indicators are age less than 6 months or 6 months. Sometimes it is difficult to diagnose a case within age of less than 6 months, and sometimes both acute osteomyelitis and septic arthritis may intervene. And in such a case, again, if there is infection within the joint, the articular cartilage will be damaged as early as possible, and the child will have, on later life, will have an limping gait. There will be TDS, the limping gait may be present. Okay, if it is associated with osteomyelitis, again the prognosis is good. And comparing about between the hip joint and knee joint, the hip joint between the deeper structure may be it may be because the time to diagnose is delayed, because the knee, if anything happens to knee, if it is swollen, reddened, it is immediately visible, but hip joint may not be that much visible because of the surrounding musculature. So maybe because of the deeper joint, the prognosis of hip joint is bad when compared to that of the knee joint. And if there is delay of more than 4 days, okay, though if the delay of is more than 4 days, then again the prognosis is bad. I think this is the end of the slide. We do not have, we have only 1 minute left. So you have shortly, if anything to ask, we can ask, otherwise we can end this class.